Should we be hangboarding twice a day? It's a popular trend on social media, but is it worth it? I'm going to answer that question and some other common and controversial questions which I get asked all the time. I'm Buster, a climbing coach, and I've spent a lifetime reading about training for climbing, applying it to my own climbing, managing to climb some of my dream climbs, as well as working with climbers and athletes all around the world and of all levels. So first up, hangboarding twice a day. Is it worth it, and do I recommend it? You might have seen this trend on social media where people are seeing really big gains in their finger strength by doing a really simple and short fingerboard workout twice a day. Firstly, I want to start by saying if there's a type of exercise that you enjoy doing and that you're staying consistent with, then I wouldn't dare recommend against it. There's no such thing as a bad exercise or a bad routine, but certain routines or certain exercises could be more or less effective for specific goals. The two biggest claims I see about these types of fingerboard protocols are one, that it's going to improve your finger strength, and two, that it's going to reduce your risk of injury. And I think there are probably better ways of doing both of those. So firstly, in terms of improving your finger strength, the load of these exercises with your feet on the floor, for most people, just isn't high enough. To improve our finger strength, we need to be working at high intensities that maybe even exceed what we're doing on the climbing wall. You could say the same for injury risk reduction. When we're looking to exercise or train to reduce our risk of injury, we're trying to expose ourselves to the things that we might come up against on the wall so that we're ready for them when we do. But these types of no hangs and fingerboarding twice a day protocols don't do that effectively. They don't consider the different velocities that we come up against the wall on the wall, or the different intensities, which are usually much higher than what you do with these no hang exercises. That's another thing with these protocols. I haven't actually worked out what intensity we're meant to be working at. I really like subjective methods of adjusting intensity, like keeping your feet on the ground and pulling at an appropriate level. But there needs to be some measure of intensity, whether that's an RPE or even a percentage. For instance, if you take two climbers, both with different strength levels, and tell both of them to hang at body weight because it's an easy and low load, actually might not be a great way of assigning an intensity for an exercise. Because for me, hanging at body weight is under 50% of my max, but for another climber, it might be close to their max. So we need to be a little bit more specific when we're assigning loads for exercises, which these protocols don't do that well. Another argument I hear supporting these types of workouts is that they're very quick, simple, and easy. And I think that's why they've grown in popularity, because it's packaged into a really neat routine that you can do. It's almost like taking a pill which is going to solve all your problems, get you stronger, and reduce your risk of injury. But the reality is that fingerboarding twice a day is actually really hard to be consistent with and fit in around everything else in your life. It seems easy, but I don't think that's the reality. I often hear from people who say they've had really positive experiences with these types of fingerboard protocols, but then when I ask if they've kept them up, they tell me they've only done it for a month or two and then it became too inconvenient. The truth is that rather than spending 10 minutes twice a day every day, you could probably just do 3 sessions of 20 minutes every week. The research shows us that our connective tissue responds just as well when we're loading them 2 or 3 times a week compared to higher frequencies of loading. So really, we don't need to add all of that complexity and inconvenience. Climbers taking creatine seems to be becoming increasingly popular. We know it's safe, it's thoroughly researched, and it has some benefits for our general health and our performance. But I think what's important to consider before we take any supplement is making sure we've got everything else dialed in. Is our training program good? Are we sleeping well? Are we eating well? And if that's the case, then it probably makes sense to consider creatine. Creatine is shown to help us improve our muscle size and strength. But the reality is that it's only supplementing that, and you have to get the training done. The way creatine works is it allows us to regenerate something called ATP faster, so we're able to do more high quality training, and over time that leads to better gains. Some climbers are worried about the weight gain which comes from creatine, and that weight gain is just an increase of water weight. When we're holding more energy, the energy is also accompanied by more water. But my way around this is by Firstly, not worrying about the increase in size and weight, because really it's allowing us more energy and more strength over time. Also by just skipping the loading stage and loading the creatine more slowly. So some people recommend taking 10 grams for a while until the muscles are saturated and then dropping to a lower dose of 3 to 5 grams. But there's no reason why we can't just start at the lower dose of 3 to 5 grams and progressively build up from there and reach that saturation slower, but in a way which is also going to increase the load on our fingers more slowly. So we're less likely to get injured because we've had a sudden spike of body weight. The cost of creatine is rising a little bit. It's not as cheap as it used to be. So you could consider whether you might be better off spending that money on some high quality food or even a gym membership. But if you've got everything else sorted out, then I reckon go for it. If you want to train your fingers and reduce your risk of injury with some simple principles, maybe just once or twice a week, then check out the description for a link to my finger training protocol.